Hello everybody, welcome back to 10 Minute Reviews. I'm Jason, bringing you today's episode. The fuzzy one that just went running by, that's Freya. She's my fuzzy little co-star. I got some of her fuzz in my mouth. And we're bringing you today's video. So as always guys, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. We would appreciate all the support you guys want to give us. We just love talking about books, love talking about authors. We want to keep bringing that kind of stuff to you guys. Fun books, fun authors. And for today I want to talk about one of my favorite authors. I've talked about him in the past, some of his other books. I want to talk about David Gemmel. David Gemmel in the book Lion of Macedon. So, as always, I'm going to talk about four things: the world, the characters, the plot, and the writing style. So, the world, pretty basic. Lion of Macedon is basically ancient Greece. Ancient Greece in the time of the Spartans, and the Thebans, and the Macedonians, although I know that wasn't Greece. That time period. But I should say that time period adjacent. It's that time period-ish, but there's definitely magic. I think Socrates or Plato or one of the big philosophers does show up as a magician, as a wizard at some point in one of these books. They do have things like parallel worlds. They do have a hell dimension that can be traveled to, preferably not while you're still alive. But otherwise, for the most part, he tries to stay, ancient Greece. But like I said, ancient Greece adjacent. The main character, his name is Parmenion. Now, he does actually show up in two books. This is the first book. It's almost an origin story. Because the second book, it's really, really out there. Parmenion he's a Greek. He is a half Spartan. So he's basically like a half-blood, so he's not really accepted on either side. And he was born under a prophecy, in a way. He is destined to be the death of nations. And being a half-blood, not really being accepted anywhere, he goes, I believe, to the Thebans. That's where he grows up. And he grows up as a warrior. Now, he's an orphan, if I recall. But he grows up as a warrior. He's studying tactics. He works out. He's a foot racer. He's a swordsman. But mostly, he's studying tactics. He's basically destined to be a general. And in fact, he takes part in and wins a major tactical game almost, which earns him the title of Strategos, basically. I think that was the title actually, Strategos. And that's a good maybe third to half the book is kind of his origin story. And David Gemmel, he's a fantastic author. He's an absolute ton of fun to read, absolute riot how he writes his characters and the dialogue and stuff like that. And a lot of that does still show up in this book, but this is actually one of his darker books. This one and the sequel to it are two of his darker books. Parmenion is a very, very tortured character. He's a very, very tortured character. He's a lot darker than the other characters that have been in his books. And a lot of the side characters are equally tortured, equally broken, and equally dark. Like even in his David Gemmel's other books, he's got characters that have some pretty messed up lives, some pretty tortured backgrounds, and yet are just affable fools, or they may have some darkness to them, are smart asses, or cutting wits. This one, there is definitely some of that in there, and there are some lighter moments in there, but again, Parmenion is definitely one of his darker characters, even over Bane. That's also one of my favorite characters of his. Now, through the rest of the book, through the second half of the book, that's where he's now interacting with someone else who's very, very, very famous from history, Philip. Philip of Macedon. Philip of Macedon, and eventually his child, Alexander. And again, a lot of prophecy and spells and magic and stuff like that comes into play in this book. Alexander has a prophecy to him, and he is cursed. He has this curse that makes him deadly. He can touch things and kill them. They just wither away, which then makes him denied by his father, by Philip, who's this great warrior, this great general. He basically hires Parmenion. Parmenion, in a way, once you get past the childhood thing and being awarded the Strategos name and stuff like that, he basically becomes a mercenary. He becomes a mercenary general. He doesn't travel with his own army. He is the one that you hire to build you an army. And that's what Philip does. That's really, again, this is just kind of like very, very loosely based on history. Philip and his empire, Philip and Alexander and their empire, well, in this book, is basically built by Parmenion. They were beset on all sides, they've been defeated in battle, they have almost no army, so what do? They hire Parmenion. They convince him to come work for them and build them an army. And that's what he does. He comes in, that's what he's known for. He builds up an army, he trains up an army, builds up their tactics, trains them in new tactics, creates new tactics sometimes, then ends up building this massive fighting force. And as they continue to expand, it just gets bigger and bigger until it becomes its own machine, basically its own thing, which also ends up building some resentment later on within the empire between Philip and Parmenion, because most of the glory, quote unquote, lies with Parmenion. They all know he is the winning general, he's the victorious general, he's the one leading he created the army, he's the one leading them to all these incredible victories, while Philip, the one or two times he's led them, they lost. So that of course leads into a little bit of conflict. Plus there's a little bit of backstory that I don't want to ruin here, but there's a little bit of backstory between Philip, Parmenion, and Alexander as well that really comes into play in book 2. But this is, for the most part, a self-contained story. There are a couple plot threads that are left over at the end that lead into the second book, but it's a self-contained story. I'm not too sure that David Gemmel, when he wrote Lion of Macedon, planned on writing the next book or not. Obviously he did, but he left it as a pretty self-contained story. So if you guys like fantasy, if you guys like humorous dialogue, if you guys just like fun freaking books, and you have not checked out David Gemmel, there is seriously something wrong with you in your head. Sadly, David Gemmel passed not too long ago, so we won't get any new books from him, but he has a very large library of absolutely incredible books that I will be talking about, because it's about 2/3 of a shelf back there. So yeah, after you hit the like and subscribe buttons, guys, go check out David Gemmel, and I really do recommend Lion of Macedon. Fantastic book. Absolutely fantastic book, especially if you like the old Greeks and Spartans and stuff like that. So, this is Sparta. Well, you don't have Parmenion kicking anybody. But Leonidas does show up either in this book or the next one. So thank you everybody for watching. We appreciate every single one of you guys, and we will catch you next time. Bye!